Well, I'd like to start out just thanking the fans and students, parents, recruits, everyone that came to our home opener, and appreciate those of you that didn't let a little rain drive you out of your seats. That was awesome to see, and it's good to be home. And it was great to have some of our former players there as well, and seeing Emeka and Kelvin on the sideline was pretty awesome just to catch up with those guys. As far as the game, interesting week in college football. I think a lot of people probably wish they would have won by one this past week. Makes our first game feel a little bit better, seeing some of the teams go down in week 2. But it's good to be 2-0. I thought as far as our team and our staff, there's a lot of improvement from week 1 to week 2. I think everyone took to heart the respective areas of emphasis and really worked hard to put their improvement on film. I think the guys really worked, challenged them to bring their goals to life and put action behind what they're talking about, to practice a little bit differently, to really increase our cardio at practice, not with number of plays, but how hard we're playing, how far we're running, and to earn the plays that you want to make on Saturday in practice on Tuesday and Wednesday. And I felt like that happened. We played complimentary football. It was good to see that again. Got to play a lot of players. I saw a thing today. There was 83 guys that played in the game for us, which may or may not be a record, but it's a lot. And it was fun to see some of those guys that, serve as walk-ons, that maybe not get a lot of reps in games, get out there and make plays. I mean, that was awesome for them. And good to get some other players in there that we're evaluating still. And, it's good for their development. I thought we blocked and tackled better, which you heard me in my press conference last week. That was kind of the biggest area of disappointment, or the 2 fundamentals of football. And guys took that to heart. We finished drives in the red zone. We were 4 for 4 on offense. And I think it's a team that has to continue to take the same approach as we move forward. And the thing that you forget, this team has a lot of guys that missed spring ball. We had guys, as you know, that had season-ending injuries a year ago, had surgeries that were not cleared yet. And so some of them were playing their first game for almost a year on the calendar. And when I say some, there was 7 or 8 of them in that boat. So I don't say that as an excuse. I say that as a point of emphasis that this team has to improve every week, because we missed a lot of time on the field with several players, and regardless how many snaps you have, there's a timeline that you have to go through, to improve. You have to see things on film. You have to, yes, knock rust off, but more just to compete at that level against competitive players where it's live. And you're going to see a lot of growth, if we take that to heart. And so it's a team that has to improve week in and week out. And so we're going to stay on that mantra. I thought, we used our first week as an opportunity to learn and grow. We have to do the same this week, and to fuel the meeting rooms and the practice fields with detailed goals and a formulated action plan to get better. I think individual improvement, individual development increases our ability to collectively improve as a team. And the good thing is there was 83 guys that got visual, for their resume. And your film is your resume as a player, and now they know what they got to work on. So, positives on offense, I think we strained more. I thought offensively we worked hard to get a body on a body, not just in the box, but on the perimeter. You guys see a lot of guys playing with effort in the run game. We were 100%, as I mentioned, in the red zone. We were 4 for 4. Second week in a row, not giving up a sack in protection. I thought our running backs were productive, not just running the football, but in the screen game, catching the football, drop back game. Jordan Houston had a nice down the field catch for a touchdown. It was good to see Devin Leary just back to being himself and playing ball, running the show, making plays, buying time in the pocket, extending plays. He played a really good football game, and what we expect to see. You know, I thought it was good to see Chris Tootle make that play in the end zone for him and his confidence. And it's good to see a lot of guys, you know, with firsts. Anthony Smith's first touchdown, Jalen Coyte's first touchdown, Delbert Mims' first touchdown. So it's good for those guys. You know, negatives, we had 4 penalties on offense. 2 of them were pre-snap in the red zone. We had 1 turnover. You know, Delbert was straining for extra yards and lost the ball. And that possession ended up being a field goal. The defense held them. And we dropped 4 passes that we thought were catchable. So those are all things we got to do better. You know, on defense, we had 3 takeaways. Tyler Baker-Williams had a forced fumble and an interception, and then Jalen Frazier got the ricochet interception off Jordan Poole. You know, I thought we played well in the run game. It was different, you know, offense than we expected. There was a lot of empties. So, you know, we did stop the run. They were not trying to run the ball a lot, but we did take that away. I thought we got off blocks better, especially at corner. You could see there was a lot of perimeter screens. They had to get off blocks and tackle, and it was good to see that. You know, I thought Derek Pitts did a really nice job there. Tayshawn Smith did a nice job there. We definitely tackled better. We went from 26 to 9 missed tackles, and that's with a lot of the starters out too. So good to see. We had 9 3-and-outs, a 4th down stop. We had no pre-snap penalties, and I thought we played tighter coverage. You know, we gave the blitzes a chance to get home. We defended some deep balls. Negatives, we lost contain on a pressure that would have been a sack, and that's something we've got to stop, especially with who we're playing this week. And we had a DPI that we could have avoided. Aiden, you know, grabbed a guy when he didn't need to. On special teams, it's good to see Chris Dunn go 2 for 2. Colin Smith really kicked off well for us, and that's a weapon to have when he's doing that. You know, obviously eliminates a phase of the game for the other team. I thought our punt coverage was elite. You know, Daryl Jones and Chris Smith and Sean Brown covered punts very well. I think we can do a better job with our hang time still there. I thought our punt return game was really solid. You know, Thayer had 2 really big returns, and then Jalen Coyte got in and had a good return himself. The guys are playing smart. There's so many opportunities on punt return and kickoff return for guys to clip, and you see our guys using good technique and making smart decisions at the moment of truth. So that's great to see their football IQ and their training's paying off. You know, excited to come play another game at home and to have our first night game of the season. I just saw they announced the following week's games at night at home as well. So we got back-to-back night games. We will be wearing our all black uniforms this week. So excited. I know players are excited about that. And we need a raucous crowd. You know, we need our 12th man to be here and to be fired up. And we're playing a really good football team in Texas Tech, a very veteran team. I looked at their defensive depth chart first thing this morning, and first thing you see is they got 10 guys that are either seniors or grad transfers. It's a very old group on defense. And I'll get into their personnel here in a minute. But just starting with their staff, you know, Joey McGuire, their head coach, is a very good friend. When I was coaching at Kansas, he was a first-time head coach at Cedar Hill High School in Dallas, and I signed his first Division I player there, Marcus Herford, who's now a coach. He was a great young man. I got to know Joey very well, and he became a state championship coach there and then moved his way up in the profession. He's done a great job as a college coach. I was excited to see him get to be a head coach at Tech. And I remember eating pregame meal with his team. He had the best chicken fried steak and gravy you've ever had before the game. Was crushing that with him. So he's a good dude, and he'll have his team ready to play. You know, they're coming off a double OT win against a ranked Houston team, and battled in that game. So it was an emotional win for them as well. You know, they beat Mississippi State in their bowl game last year, who, as we know, we didn't play well against, beat them convincingly. And a lot of that team is back. So, you know, I look at them, they're a team that has a chip on their shoulder. You know, oftentimes some of the other schools in Texas maybe not get the notoriety of Texas and Texas A&M. And I think those kids play with a chip on their shoulder there because of that. So have a lot of respect for Texas Tech, always have. You have 10 starters back on defense that are all older kids. Like I mentioned, they're very long. They've recruited long guys. Their defensive front has got really tall defensive ends. Their linebackers are very athletic. They run well. Their corners are long. And Coach Tim DeRuyter is a veteran D coordinator, hired him from Oregon. He's been a head coach, brings a lot of different looks and pressures, and does a lot of man-to-man coverage. Offensively, they're up tempo, they're spread, typical formations that you see, but they got very long, rangy outside receivers. Their quarterback can run and has a great arm. You'll see him throw deep out routes to the field from the far hash and does it with ease, and can make plays on his feet. Won the game with his feet on a scramble last week. It's a very good team coming to town, a team that is being mentioned in the top 25. They play hard. They got good players, good coaches. I'm excited, about the matchup, and looking forward to our students and our fans and our parents and recruits get tuned up and have a great time and give us a lot of noise, man. We need it. And I think there's nothing better than a night game at the Carter when it's rocking. It's supposed to be beautiful weather too. So as far as the health of our roster, we'll have Peyton back. Expect to have Shy Battle back as well. And as you know, Trent's out 4 to 6 weeks. So other than that, we're very healthy as we get ready for this game. Any questions?
Aaron Beard.
Hey, Dave, did want to follow up on Coach Beck being upstairs. Kind of what were your conversations like in review after the game?
Yeah, no, he liked it, felt like he could see it. It'll be something we continue. It was a positive, I think, all the way around.
David.
Hey, Coach. Over the last 24 hours, your name's been mentioned as a possible replacement for Scott Frost at Nebraska. Is that a position you're interested in?
Dude, it's week 3 of the season, man. I'm so fired up to coach my team this week. So, no, I'm so excited about playing at home and coaching the Wolfpack. And it's not the first time that names have been on lists. So, it is what it is when you talk about that. But I can't wait to get ready for this game. I mean, this is a big one for us and a big season and a great group of guys. So that's where my head and my heart is.
Evan.
Coach, Texas Tech has done a great job in the red zone this year. They are 6 for 8 and then 5 for 8 for scoring touchdowns. How do you take a defensive approach to try and stop them and put some more pressure on that offense to try and halt their momentum?
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll get into all that in the game plan. The red zone's tight spaces. It's, you got to have a body on a body in coverage. You got to be able to contend for jump balls. Depending on what they're doing, you've got to be ready for pick routes down there as well. In the run game, +1 runs with a big quarterback, we're going to have to tackle and get off blocks. So, they're a good football team. It's what you would expect. And really in week 1, they weren't really challenged, a whole lot. And this past week, that was a back and forth game. So you can't get really too much into stats, I don't think, after 2 weeks. It takes time to really kind of balance out what you are. But, I think just in general, when you face a team with an athletic quarterback, that's always a major factor as you get closer and closer to the goal line.
Gibby.
Yeah, Dave, does this team, talent-wise, does it match up with anybody you play in the ACC, anybody similar to what you'll face on down the road possibly?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think there's a lot of teams that have similar styles. We play Florida State, Louisville, Clemson. I mean, it's spread offense, big receivers, up-tempo, defensive line. They're multiple. So, you can't really compare them anyway to one particular team, but body types and style of play very similar to a lot of the teams we'll face in the league.
Dave, well, I got you. A lot of teams like you guys might shy away from games like this in an early season. They pick some cupcakes, and you guys have played some really, really tough teams this year already on non-schedule. Do you like that?
Yeah, I think, gets you ready for what's coming. And I think you have to do a good job picking the right teams to play non-conference wise. I've always felt like, and this one's a little unique, usually we'll try to play a team in our recruiting area that's non-conference. It's just not as easy as you think to find games, sometimes you can't. So, you know, we were able to find a team similar to us. I think there's a lot of similarities in these schools when you look at, you know, just the way that they play and the you know, the chip on the shoulder. Their fans are, if you've ever been to Lubbock for a game, they have an awesome game day, you know, so, you know, it's a good team to play. I just think in general, from a model of scheduling, you'll probably, if you study it, it's going to be more regional teams if we can make it that way, just from a recruiting standpoint, and for parents to be able to travel when you go on the road and all those things.
James,
Yeah, Dave, it looks like you guys made a concerted effort to get Anthony Smith and Julian Graves snaps early. Was that by design coming out of ECU, or maybe game flow for this specific game?
No, I wanted them to play more in an ECU game. You know, I was disappointed they didn't. You know, and like I told you guys last week, sometimes as position coaches, you stick with what's more comfortable. To me, you know, those are two names of guys. There's others at other positions that, you know, they don't have to play as much as the older guys, but they need to play enough to develop and grow because they're very talented. And we need to keep getting those guys in the game, because the more they play, the better they're going to get. And I think that confidence and your nerves change, you know, as you're used to being out there. So those are two guys that we look at in the receiver room as guys that will be the future of that position as we move forward down the road, you know, and we lose Thayer Thomas and we lose Devin Carter, you know, familiar faces. You're going to have your younger group. You're seeing Porter on the field a little bit more, and we go 10 personnel, but that younger group of receivers, Jalen Coyte's another one, you know, that got in the game and made some plays. It helps to play them, not just in mop-up duty, so that if there's an injury, they're not nervous going in the game at Clemson, you know. So that's something that I believe in, and you know, we just need to do a good job as coaches. And I need to make sure I'm on top of that with them to get those kids in the game. And I don't know what the rep count is, you know, but there's just got to be a rotation where they're showing up in there, you know, in each half.
And just to follow up, are those two or three guys, can they specifically help you this season as well? You know, obviously, with what you've seen from them.
You're talking about Julian and Anthony, those two?
Yeah, and Jalen as well, Coit.
Yeah. I think all those guys are guys that we're excited about. You know, I mean, we have good players in that room, so you know, I think we're excited about who's in front of them too. You know, Daryl Jones is playing good football for us right now. Thayer's playing really good football for us. You know, we have a lot of respect for what Devin Carter has done and the plays that he can make. So it's nice to have a rotation. You know, I would equate it to some of the basketball teams that I used to watch growing up. You know, the 5 guys would go out and the other 5 would come in, and they would just keep playing and wear the other team down, you know. And if you have a rotation at a position where you can do that, it's helpful because your guys can play faster when they're fresh. You don't always have that luxury, you know. And so there's going to be things that certain players do better than others, and we're going to use them for that. But in general, you want to have a rotation where you can get guys in and out of the game and keep them fresh, just like you see us doing at running back and on the defensive line and some in the secondary too.
Appreciate it, Dave.
Yep.
Chip,
Yeah, Coach, Malik Dunlap's a player that you brought in out of Charlotte, and he played for you for a few years. Just what do you remember about the way, you know, he helped your program, and what were the reasons for him leaving to go to Texas Tech?
Yeah, I'm not going to speak on that. You know, I'm happy for Malik. I'm glad he's having success. As a young man, we really enjoyed having in our program, and he made a decision to leave, and he's having success where he's at. So I think that's great for him.
Aaron, Beard, David Thompson.
Coach, you mentioned last year, you know, sort of some frustrations with the amount of night games that you had, but are you excited to kind of have these back-to-back night games, have this atmosphere, you know, so you guys can get ready for what will probably be a primetime game against Clemson in a couple of weeks? Yeah,
you know, I think playing at night is great. I love it. Playing at night, 8 of 9 games, particularly when you're traveling and getting home at 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning, that's a different conversation, David, you know. So I asked the ACC to be cognizant of that for player health, you know, and really for coach health. Like, you know, we're working on short hours that become shorter, and that's not good for your mental health. It's not good for your physical health. I think there just needs to be a balance, you know. Hey, this team just played 3 in a row at night. Let's put them on at 3:30 if they're a marquee game, you know. But in general, yeah, I mean, I love what it does for the fans, you know, how they get into that. And it's good for recruiting because people have time to get to your games, and our players like playing under the lights. There's a lot of positives, but the over and over and over and over part of it, particularly after road games, just needs to be monitored by the league or by the television networks, whoever's pulling the trigger on that, to keep the health of the student athletes and the coaches in mind.
Evan,
Coach, how do you, as a head coach, get your players, get your coaches to turn up the intensity during practices? What do you change when you go from an opponent like Charleston Southern, preparing for them, and then preparing for a Big 12 opponent like Texas Tech?
Well, last week, there's just an embarrassing bunch of film to look at, which made you want to do things differently as a player. You know, they didn't like how they looked on film. They knew that they needed to prepare in a different way. I challenged them to do that, and they did, and they liked the results. So when that happens, you talk about it like, hey, let's study the last 7 days, guys. Here's how we felt. And we're talking about yesterday now. 7 days prior to yesterday, we felt really bad sitting in our seats in here about what we put on film and how we coached. And then look what we did. We took that information. We came up with a different plan. We went to work. We had a very, very aggressive Tuesday. Guys ran all over the place. They were fatigued after. Did it again on a shorter practice, but same intensity on Wednesday. And look at the results. You know, the guys played better. And so they know that. And obviously they know the competition goes up with Texas Tech. So that's going to kind of handle it on its own from that standpoint. But the process of what we did is discussed. It is studied. The kids do understand the why behind it, and they understand the reward that comes from it. And so I think it'll just, you know, kind of help itself as we go forward.
Aaron, you're back.
I appear to be back. Dave, I wanted to ask you about penalties, so sort of in line with that, about you review your process. And if you answered this while I got disconnected, I apologize. What are those sessions like specific to penalties? When you're going through film study and saying, this was a bad penalty, you talked about pre-snaps, all those things that go into that. Like, how do you really drill that message home when you're watching film? I mean, I don't know if you use the word embarrass a guy, but you have to point it out to him bluntly, I would guess.
Yeah, we do. It's conversation. You know, one of the things I do is show them why we call it the formula, but how we won the game, you know. And so you go through the areas, and penalties is one of the areas. So, you know, we have focus penalties. Those are your pre-snap things that you just mentioned. So we'll talk about it. All right. We had, in this game, we had 2 offsides on the offense. So here's the 2 players. Their names are up there on the PowerPoint. Both of these penalties were in the red zone. That can have a negative effect on scoring. You took us from 1st and 10 to 1st and 15. We had another one on a 4th and 4 on a punt where a guy had false started, but we actually got them to jump off sides. And had we not flinched, we would have got a 1st down. So we discuss what happens in those situations. And then you go to the next one. All right, during the play, combat penalties is what I call it. We had these penalties. We had a DPI. Sometimes I'll tell them, like, hey, that was good coverage. You know, that doesn't get called very often. I wouldn't change anything. The ref just saw it a different way. Sometimes I'll tell them, like in this case, you can't grab a guy. You know, we flat grabbed a guy and we didn't need to. You know, there were 3 holding penalties called. I thought 2 of them were calls that never get made, you know. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on stuff like that. But on the other one, our hands are outside and we're jerking a guy. That's different. You're going to discuss the technique behind that penalty. And then we even discussed penalties that weren't called that we thought probably should have been called, you know. And hey, we had a play where we picked a guy up and threw him down. Seen that called. We got to learn from that. We got away with one right there. So, you know, it's just an education of here's what happened in the game. Here's what we can take from these moments. And then you go to the next phase. Here's the red zone. Here's what happened. Here's 3rd down. Here's what happened. Like, you know, and so just spending time on not just celebrating that we got pancakes and handing out bottles of syrup, but also teaching, you know, from the game so that we can learn and get better as we move forward.
Brian Murphy.
Hey, Coach, have you given much thought to the potential 12-game playoff and what that might look like and how that might change how you schedule non-conference in particular?
Yeah, you know, I'm excited about the access. There's so many questions that, I have, just because I've been in the playoffs twice as a FCS coach, and how long those seasons were. We played 16 games one year and 15 the other, and it's 31 games in 2 years that we played. How it impacts the academic schedule, what happens to bowl games, what happens to our, we're scheduled out, as you guys know, like till 2030, so like what happens to some of those games? So there's a lot of questions, but we haven't gotten to that. We're trying to win our third game right now. That's kind of where my head is, but those are things that came up. I am excited that the conference champions from the Power Five, leagues get a automatic berth, and I think that's good. There's access for teams to get in, and we'll see where it goes.
Do you think, certainly there was a lot of talk last week, about the game against East Carolina, and if things had gone differently, no chance at the playoff in a new system, you could lose a game like that and still come back and have a team that's really going well at the end of the season, make some noise in a playoff. Yeah, you could. Obviously the non-conference games won't count in your conference championship as far as getting there that way. But yeah, there could be a lot of change. As there's been a lot of changes in the last 24 months to college football, period. And so wouldn't be surprised to see a lot more in the next 12, as we move forward with this, just to get the answers that we're all kind of looking for. Thanks, Coach. You bet.
David.
You mentioned Peyton coming back. How big is that for the defense against, playing against this kind of opponent?
Well, first, I'm excited for him. He feels really good. He's in a good space. Gives us another really good athlete to play a spread offense with, and one that's excited to go out there and play with his teammates and that misses playing football, and so the rotation, as I've been talking about, gets a little better, because Jalen Scott's playing really good. And that's the thing. We'll be able to play Peyton and play Jalen, and, Jalen can take some reps off of multiple guys because he's cross-trained to play multiple positions. And it's good to get, Betty some more reps to help Isaiah. It's good to get, Jalen Parker some reps to help Drake. So all those things, it's a long season. There's a lot of plays. We didn't have to play a lot in this past game, but in this next one, they're a team that tries to snap it as many times as they can. So we got to have that rotation, and having Peyton back in the depth chart helps us there.
All right, we're going to wrap this up pretty soon. Chip.
Yeah, Coach, when we were talking to Demi last week, he mentioned that he didn't get a lot of offers from a lot of the Power Five type schools. What did you guys see in him that maybe some of the others didn't when you were recruiting him?
Well, I don't know what the others didn't see. I mean, we saw a really good football player, tough guy that could see, has vision, accelerates quickly, catches the ball well, physical, yards after contact, all the things you see now. So, that was a weird time, and I'm not saying he might have had a lot more if coaches were allowed to be out in schools. You just never know, but that was a different time in recruiting. We weren't allowed to go out on the road. All these things were done on video and through Zoom calls, and it was very, very challenging year of recruiting. So we're fortunate to have another great player from the state of New Jersey come down and join us, because if you look at the season so far, you had Josiah blocking a punt for a touchdown, Demi doing what he's doing, Devin Leary doing what he's doing. That's been a state that's been good to us.
Going to take two more. Aaron.
Dave, I was curious your reaction to the Appalachian State win, and also, the Big Four teams you guys included are combined, I think 9-0, 5 road wins between the 4 of the ACC teams in this state. Just your thoughts on kind of the start for the football in this state at FBS level.
Well, one, I'm super happy for Sean Clark and his staff. I know those coaches there; they're awesome guys, man. And my oldest son Jacob goes to App State. He was so excited during that game. So I think it's awesome. What an upset win for them, and couldn't have happened to a better group of people. Really, tremendous amount of respect and love for that staff, and the experience my son's had there as a student has been very, very positive. So great for Boone and that community. And, as far as the league and the state and all that, I mean, we're always cheering for people to do well in our conference. And You know, it's great that guys are going on the road and getting the job done. It's happy for Coach Elko. I know that was a big win for them at Duke. Getting Northwestern and that game for him was a big win. And Coach Clausen got a good win against a, you know, coach that used to work for him and Clark Lee. So that's, you know, I know those are always challenging when you're playing guys that are head coaches that used to work for you. So I'm glad to see that, you know, the league is doing well on the road and the teams in the state are doing well on the road.
Last question, James.
Yeah, Dave, Travali Price recovered a fumble, nearly had a strip sack. Through 2 games, he's a freshman playing for you as well. Just evaluate his skill set.
Yeah, Travali plays really hard. You know, I mean, that's the one thing that no matter what, when you watch his film, he is straining. He's one of these guys that you never have to talk about effort with. And I love that about him. Not surprised that he made a play on the quarterback. He's probably been one of the better speed pass rushers we've had in training camp, and losing Daniel Joseph, who was a good pass rusher for us, losing Levi Jones, who was a good pass rusher for us. You know, it's great to see Travali taking on that role because we need that. You know, where are we going to get that rush from? It's a question we have, you know, and so having him out there getting Peyton back will be helpful as well. And Jalen Parker did some good things rushing. Jordan Poole did some good things rushing. So, you know, we just got to keep working those guys. But Travali will get better and better, you know, the more he plays and starts understanding how the flow of the game is. And he's going to get better and better. He's got a good career in front of him if he just keeps working.